Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our Massive Interface overview. This is Dan from EDM Academy, and in part 2 I'll be going over the middle section of Massive. Once again, this will only be a basic rundown of each section, and all features will be covered later in a more in-depth video. Alright, so first we have the OSC tab, which hosts a variety of general settings. Glide, also known as portamento, allows you to gradually glide between each note played. In equal mode, all notes take the same amount of time to glide, whereas in rate mode, notes take longer or shorter to glide depending on how far away in pitch they are from each other. The time knob controls how long it takes for one note to glide into another. Next to that we have pitch bend. As the name suggests, pitch bend allows you to enable a range for MIDI pitch bend capabilities. This is then utilized outside of Massive in your sequencer. In the middle we have the oscillator phases. This section allows you to control the phase relationships between the waves of each oscillator. Over here is our vibrato settings, in which you can set the depth and speed of your vibrato. You can also select a mono option, which will prevent your vibrato from splitting your sound into stereo. Over here on the right we have an internal envelope with only an attack and decay setting, which can be utilized anywhere inside of this tab. Next we have the key tracking OSC tab. Key tracking is a feature that takes into account what note and octave is being inputted. In this tab, you can set the relationship between which note is inputted and which pitch is outputted. In its default setting, pressing the C4 key on your keyboard will output a C4 pitch in Massive as expected, so you generally won't change this setting. If you were to edit this line, pressing C4 might give you a higher or lower pitch, such as playing an E4 pitch instead. Next is the key tracking filter tab. Similar to the previous tab, this tab lets you change the relationship between which key is pressed and what frequency your filter's cutoff setting is set to. Next is the voicing tab. The voicing tab contains settings pertaining to controlling Massive's individual voices. A voice is simply one instance of your sound. If you were to set your voices to 4, you would essentially be playing 4 instances of your sound for each single note played. On the left, we have our max and unisono settings. The unisono number is the number of voices Massive will play per note, and the max is the cutoff limit for total number of voices. If your unisono is set to 4 and your max is set to 16, you may play 4 notes at a time before Massive will automatically stop playing additional notes or voices. The highest max setting is 32. Underneath that, we have our polyphonic and mono settings. In order to play chords in Massive, polyphonic must be selected. However, in order to take advantage of the glide setting mentioned earlier, your sound must be set to monophonic. Underneath that, we have our trigger modes. The trigger mode controls how Massive's glide mode and modulation sources will be triggered in your MIDI sequencer. On the right, we have our unisono spread section. The unisono spread section allows you to differentiate multiple voices from one another in a variety of ways. Pitch cutoff gradually detunes each additional voice from its original tuning. Wavetable position brings each voice's wavetable position further away from their starting point. And pan position spreads each voice out into the stereo field. Next we have our routing tab. As seen in the previous video, the routing tab allows you to control the signal flow of Massive's different sections. Next to that is the global tab. The Global tab hosts a series of general settings for Massive. Directly underneath these tabs are Massive's modulation and envelope pages. Massive comes with 4 envelope and 4 modulation pages, which allow you to design and assign envelopes and modulators to nearly any parameter within Massive. Performer and stepper modulation pages are accessible inside of the LFO pages. Alright, that about does it for our basic interface overview. Check out our in-depth videos to learn more about Massive.